the layman understands Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, all these as financial asset classes. And that's it. People don't dive this deep into cryptocurrency.
Right.
Someone who understands software development will definitely see it as a financial asset, but will also view it in this light, in the fashion that we're talking.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if one can build applications using Bitcoin. I don't think.
They've added that functionality to Bitcoin now.
Who's added it?
The community of people that run the network and that build and upgrade the software that
that
Bitcoin runs.
People who own a large amount of Bitcoin?
Not necessarily, but often they are. Yeah, they are people that have been early in Bitcoin and hold a lot of Bitcoin and care about its future. Those are people that are going back and saying, what can we add on top of that ledger? But it didn't start that way.
In my eyes, this is a bit of a centralized body.
They have to get any changes that they all agree on and build the software for. They have to get them approved by 51% of all the people running the network, the miners.
How do they communicate with each other?
Over other internet protocols and the way that we all communicate with each other. They do it on Twitter and on message boards and other social media platforms and in person at conferences.
Okay. Who organizes these decision-making events?
So there are foundations that have been established for the Bitcoin community in ecosystems like Solana. You see the same thing, but there's also the Solana Foundation.
Bitcoin?
Yeah. In Bitcoin, I think there is a Bitcoin Foundation. Really everyone in the industry has a stake in what happens with Bitcoin. Everybody cares, right?
But practically speaking, from a human level, say I own, I don't know, man, 10,000 Bitcoins and you own 10,000 Bitcoins and he owns 10,000 Bitcoins. And we see Ethereum and Solana doing their thing and we realize that, hey, we need to use Bitcoin to build other softwares as well. What's the practical process of doing that?
It happens in a decentralized way, right? So, like any movement, it can come from any one of us or even somebody who has one Bitcoin or has no Bitcoin, right? If it's an idea that starts to propagate, the people who own Bitcoin and more importantly, the people who run the miners, the people who run the computers, they need to agree on that idea before it actually makes it to the network.
So they'll alter that open source code?
They will upgrade it. They'll have a new release. And if 51% of the miners accept that release, then it becomes part of the software.
Okay. For example, during an election, you go to a voting booth and you place your vote.
Yeah.
What's the equivalent of a voting booth in this case?
The equivalent would be upgrading. So when you open your app store on your phone and you look at the applications that you already have installed, sometimes there'll be an update button next to them, right? Unless you have automatic updates turned on. If you have automatic updates, it'll all happen without you deciding. But if you don't have automatic updates turned on, you need to hit that button. And sometimes, on Android, I know on iOS this is the case. When you hit that update button or when you have the opportunity to, there are notes next to it. What got added in this release, right? What did we change? What did we update? Sometimes developers aren't that helpful. They just say bug fixes. It's very vague. In Bitcoin, it has to be extremely specific. In any crypto system, you have to be very specific and public about what is being added in that release.
But is there like a website, forums?
Yeah, Bitcoin Talk. There are many, right? It's not all in one place.
Okay.
It happens in a lot of places.
I didn't know that one could alter the nature of Bitcoin in the first place.
Only if the miners all agree to the change. It's happened a couple times in Bitcoin's life. There have been debates about, they're all technical things, so I don't know if we want to get into them here, but about the should they try to make it faster? Should they work with other consensus algorithms?
What you're explaining is the true nature of a decentralized system. What I'm not able to wrap my head around is the practical human way of doing it. So say if I'm a Bitcoin miner, Naki's a Bitcoin miner.
Yeah.
And over the course of 2025, we realized that, hey, we need to change this aspect of Bitcoin. How will we practically create that change?
Well,
And because no one knows who created Bitcoin in the first place.
yeah. Well, normally the way that it'll happen is you'll launch a different version of Bitcoin that just operates the way that you want it to. So, for instance, Litecoin took some of those decisions that didn't make it through in the core network of Bitcoin and the miners that operate it. And they said, it doesn't matter if the Bitcoin community and ecosystem doesn't want Bitcoin to work this way. We're going to make a new version of Bitcoin that does work this way, and we're going to call it Litecoin. And then you have a twin, right? You have a fork that the market decides if that change was valuable or not valuable and how valuable it was. So a lot of the times what will happen is these ideas will get tested. So one of the reasons that people trust Bitcoin a lot is because it really hasn't changed a lot. So I'm telling you that these mechanisms exist to change it, but it's almost not changed at all since inception. Very, very few changes, right?
Okay. Again, the overarching theme in my head is that this is why the case of Ethereum and Solana has more muscle. Because you can build software on top of this.
Right.
In fact, I've done a few cryptocurrency podcasts. This is the first time I'm hearing that Bitcoin has been altered slightly.
Yeah.
So let's actually stick to talking about Ethereum and Solana. Ethereum for now, because we're on that chapter.
Yeah. And by the way, like Ethereum has changed, has underwent many more changes than Bitcoin.
Okay.
So we talked about proof of work and proof of stake earlier. Ethereum used to be a proof of work network. That means that there were miners that were using electricity to solve math problems to secure the network. And now it's proof of stake, which means that there are people who own the token and stake it and validate transactions and put that money at risk of being slashed to secure the network. The core security mechanism for the entire network was swapped out after Ethereum launched. Many years later, actually, after there were many billions of dollars passing through it.
Let's speak from a layman perspective again. So an auntie who's bought Ethereum a couple of years ago and is just holding it in her mobile application, right? In India, we have like 2 or 3 big ones. She's forgotten about it because that was the narrative in cryptocurrency podcasts in India that, hey, Bitcoin and Ethereum, these two are good and safe cryptocurrencies. That's why maybe consider holding these for a long time. But does that auntie have a right to vote to change some aspect of Ethereum just because she holds 1 ETH?
Well, the way that she would be able to do it is in Ethereum, like in Solana, who you delegate to, if you're staking, is sort of like your vote in the network. It's you saying, this is someone that I trust, that I want to manage the security of my coins.
So those applications that they end up using, the founders of those applications will have the right to actually help change the network.
The founders sometimes are not involved at all anymore, right? Many of the founders of Ethereum are not involved anymore. Same with Solana. If they have a big presence in the forums where people tend to be making these changes, that can be impactful. But it's not like Zuckerberg and Facebook, right? They don't have control. They're like politicians. They need to make a case. And people listen to them more because they're the ones who built the network, but eventually they'll be dead.
Do you have more power in the network if you hold more of that asset?
It depends on which network you're talking about and how they're designed, right? In Ethereum, there's, other than just the fact that you're probably going to be more well-known if you own more of it, there isn't anything that inherently makes somebody more powerful in the network. You you have more voting power based on how much you have staked. So, what I mentioned earlier with Bitcoin, there's 51% needed to make a change. In Ethereum, it's 66% stake needed. Same as in Solana.
Explain staking.
So staking is taking the tokens that you own in the network and locking them up and having the person who has the key to that lock validate transactions. So they're the ones that are through their software, through their computer, keeping track of the ledger. And if it turns out later that one of those transactions was recorded incorrectly, then that stake will get slashed. So you'll lose some of it. If you validate transactions correctly, then there will be more tokens that are issued as a sort of a form of interest or rewards.
Okay. Hey, if you enjoyed this clip from the Ranveer Show, we've uploaded a ton of other clips related to a ton of other topics. So explore the channel because there's something for everyone.